Hey everybody, Kelly from Pro Paint and Drywall coming at you today. How y'all doing? Just thought I'd go over some of the basics of drywall. So I just bought myself, I got a little bit of mud on it already, but haven't used it yet. Brand new Hawk. So in drywall for hand tools, a lot of people use a Hawk and Trowel like I do. So that's the Hawk. Man, they're so nice and they're brand new. So shiny. And then the Trowel is right here. So, you put the mud onto the Hawk and then scrape it off with the Trowel. And then you apply the mud. Kind of hard to see there. You put the mud on with the Trowel on the wall. Scrape off your excess mud onto the Hawk, and that's a Hawk and Trowel. Now, there are a lot of tapers that use knife and pan. And us Hawk and Trowel guys, we joke around with them a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I've worked with some excellent knife and pan drywallers, but we tease them that they use floor scrapers. So, but that's a little joke between us. I'm trying to find out, here's the pan. So, I also do have a pan, and I like to use it for certain things. Mostly I'm a Hawk and Trowel guy, but, for like my finishing work and stuff, that's where you get into the bigger tools. So, but I do own, this is a 10-inch, I believe, knife. Let me see. Yep, 10-inch, because that's a 12-inch trowel. So, I do have a 10-inch knife. I'll use this for certain things. Like if I got to get into a corner or something, it's kind of nice to use. Like if I had the mud right into the angle. It also, these knives do tend to feather in the edges better. So I don't know if you can see, there's a vertical joint right there. So if that's a bad example. Okay, better example. Like around this outlet, I think I just used a 6-inch for that. But for the first coat, but for this final coat, I could kind of swirl around like that. It does these circular motions easier than a trowel does. And the very edge, it'll feather that out better so you don't have like a thick ridge here when you're done. So these knives do have their places. Primarily though, I use the Hawk and Trowel for touching up behind box tools, which are these mechanical box tools. I also use the Hawk and the Trowel for doing my corner beads. And if I got any final coating to do on the butt joints. So, and then, coming behind the mechanical tool. Mechanical tool does not get right into the very corner, so I'll just kind of touch up my ends with my Hawk. Trowel, I'm sorry. But for the pan, I like to use the pan. Pan is kind of nice for, you can use it for pre-fill if you want. I don't use a lot of Durbond. I tend to use +3 for pre-fill. As long as you don't need for it to dry really quick. I'll usually pre-fill it one day and then come back the next, so I'll just tend to use +3 compound. Usually about a day, if you got enough heat, it'll set up and then you can start taping the next day. But You know, if you get into a garage that's not heated, or you get down into a basement where it's kind of cool and damp, then it's probably time to break out the Durabond, because it's got to dry before you put the next coat on, before you tape it, or you're going to have major problems. But yeah, so this can be used for, pan can be used for pre-fill. If it's a Durabond, I might pre-fill using the hot though. But you could just as easily use Durabond in the pan, as long as you dig it up before it hardens. Another thing I like using the pan for is taping, and because the mud is looser, so it'll sit in there with, you know, you try to put that loose mud on a hawk and it's more apt to fall right off the edge. Another thing I like to use the pan for, and again, for taping I use a plastic 6-inch usually for the seams, and then I'll use, this is metal, but it's a 6-inch, but it's plastic. And then for the very angles, I'll use a 4-inch metal, because if I was to use a plastic knife, it's just an example, this is metal, but I also have a plastic knife. So if this knife was plastic and it was a 4-inch, not a 6, so it'd be about this wide, you see over here, this side of the knife rubs on this wall, and it actually makes the knife smaller and smaller because that plastic wears away so fast. So in the very angles, I like to use a 4-inch metal knife, because the metal won't wear away. It'll take a long time to wear that side off. But when I tape for the joints, I'll use plastic 6-inch. Works really nice. It's less drag resistant. It's way easier on the wrist. We've shown that to experienced tapers before that are very fast tapers, and they've switched over to the plastic 6-inch for taping. They didn't believe us at first, but like I said, it's easier on your wrist. You can use a metal 6-inch, but the plastic, if it's easier on your wrist, try it, you know, less drag resistance. So, and then another thing I like using the pan for is angles. So when I run my angles, it's kind of just like coming behind the mechanical tool that does the flats. I also have a mechanical tool that runs the angles. So once I'm done running them, I'll touch up the bottoms, because there's usually a little bit of buildup of mud. And I just carry my pan and a 6-inch metal knife around and touch up. And then where all three come together, same thing. And the mud, you can use a hawk if you want. I just tend to like pulling the mud out of the pan instead of off the hawk for touch up the angles with the 6-inch. But once I start getting into the bigger tools, I'm usually hawk and trowel. That's what I was originally trained in on. And so I'm a little more comfortable with a trowel. But you give me a knife and a pan, and I can touch up with that also. Another guy once told me too, like, he said he noticed that when he's on the ceilings, especially, not so much the walls, but he was a knife and pan guy, but when he did the ceilings, like if he had to float out a butt joint, which I sometimes have to do for a final coat, if it's still humped after running the mechanical tool on it, he said that he found that the trowel appears to be way easier on his wrist. Must be the angle that his wrist is at or something. So I don't know if that was just him or if that would be people in general, you know, tapers in general. But try it, you know, try a trowel on the ceiling, the overhead versus a pan and knife. Try a trowel and hawk on the ceiling, see if it's easier on your wrist. You know, never be afraid to try stuff. you stop trying and experimenting, and you could be making the same mistake or doing it the hard way for years and possibly decades, just because you weren't open and minded enough to try something new. You try it and it's not for you and you don't like it, well then forget about it. It didn't work. But once in a while you might find something that does work. And if it can make your job easier for years and decades down the road or whatever, maybe it'll save you from some carpal tunnel. I know guys that are knife and pan guys, and they'll load up this pan plumb full of mud, and day in and day out, they're holding this pan. It's pretty heavy, and it's full of mud, like this. And I know one guy, he got carpal tunnel, and I've heard once you have the carpal tunnel surgery, it just comes back on you anyway. I've never had carpal tunnel, but I have heard from people that have had it and they've had surgery that a lot of times the carpal tunnel will come back after a while. Now with the hot, you're holding like this. So it's a bit of a different grip. Right? But you got a different grip. And with the pan, your grip is more like this. So, I've been doing this, since I've been 18. I'm going on 53 here pretty soon, so I'm coming up on 35 years of experience for the most part. Maybe I took a little time off. I've done it most of my life. So let's just say 30 plus years in the business. And so yeah, I just thought I'd kind of share those little tips with you. I can go into more detail on, I got a cool little pro tip on how to use the pan when I'm taping and stuff, but I'll save that for another video. Anyways, I hope you guys are all having a good day. Make sure you smash that like button. If you found some value, share this. Subscribe to the channel. This is Kelly, out.